The Galactic Council's cultural exchange program had seemed like a diplomatic formality until Ambassador Tock's parents received the incident report. Their cub had been hospitalized, not from violence, disease, or negligence, but from what the human liaison called an enthusiastic cooking lesson. Tock's father, Commander Velrith, arrived at the human settlement with scales bristling and tail rigid with fury. The metallic corridors of the orbital station gave way to the warmer, softer architecture of the human quarter, where everything smelled of strange spices and organic chaos. He found his son in the medical bay, not suffering, but laughing, a sound he hadn't heard since before the war. "Papa!" Tock chirped, his small clawed hands wrapped around something the humans called a cookie. "Look what Meera taught me to make." Velrith's third eyelid flickered in confusion. The human beside his son, a female with brown skin and flour dusted across her dark hair, stood with an expression that hovered between guilt and defiance. "Commander Velrith," Meera said, extending her hand in that bizarre human gesture of greeting. "I'm Meera Chen, cultural liaison. I owe you an explanation." "You owe me more than that," Velrith growled, ignoring the hand. "My son was admitted with burns, minor lacerations, and what your medical staff described as sugar intoxication." "It wasn't that bad, Papa," Tock protested. "The fire was really small and Meera put it out right away." Velrith's blood went cold. "Fire?" Meera had the decency to wince. "Perhaps we should talk in my quarters. Took, why don't you finish your cookie in the common room? I think the other cubs wanted to hear about your flambe attempt." As Tock scampered off with alarming energy for someone who'd been hospitalized hours earlier, Velrith followed Meera into a living space that defied every regulation he knew. The kitchen, if that's what the dangerous-looking room could be called, showed evidence of recent catastrophe. Scorch marks on the ceiling, a suspicious dent in the wall, containers of substances in colors that didn't exist in nature. "Before you file a formal complaint," Meera said, pulling out a chair that groaned under Velrith's weight, "you should know that what happened today is, well, it's kind of a human tradition. Injuring children is your tradition? Teaching them is." Meera sat across from him, her dark eyes serious. "Commander, how do your people teach cubs to prepare food?" Velrith's jaw tightened. "They don't. Nutrition is administered by certified specialists. Cubs are fed optimized formulas until they reach cognitive maturity at age 16. And before your war ended, how many of your cubs died from starvation?" The question was a blade between his ribs. 7 million, he said quietly, when the supply lines collapsed. Meera nodded. "On Earth, we lost entire civilizations to famine. So we made sure every human, every child, learns to feed themselves and others. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's dangerous. Tock isn't the first cub to set something on fire in my kitchen, and he won't be the last." "That's supposed to reassure me?" "No." Meera stood and moved to a cooling unit, extracting a covered dish. "This is." She unveiled something that made Velrith's olfactory sensors flare with interest despite himself. The aroma was complex, layered, nothing like the efficient nutrient blocks he'd eaten his entire life. "Tock made this," Meera said. "Well, I guided him, but his hands kneaded the dough. He chose the spices. When the oil got too hot and flames shot up, he didn't freeze. He remembered what I taught him and grabbed the lid to smother it. Yes, he got a minor burn. Yes, he ate too much sugar during the cooling period and felt sick. But Commander, your son created something with his own hands, something that will nourish others. Can you say the same?" Velrith stared at the bread, golden, imperfect, beautiful in its irregularity. "Our efficiency protocols nearly killed your species," Meera interrupted, her voice gentle but unyielding. "I've read your files, Commander. Your people optimized everything. Emotions, creativity, childhood. You became so efficient you forgot how to adapt, how to survive when the systems failed. And humans survived through chaos? Through resilience." Meera broke off a piece of Tock's bread and offered it to him. "We let our cubs make mistakes because mistakes teach survival. We let them play with fire because fire is both danger and salvation. We let them fail because failure breeds innovation." Velrith took the bread. It was still warm, the crust cracking under his claws to reveal soft, steaming interior. He bit into it and tasted something his language had no word for. Not just flavor, but intention. Love made edible. The other cubs, he said slowly, the ones from species across the council, they do this too. Meera's smile was radiant. Every Tuesday, we call it Kitchen Disasters Night. Last week, Ambassador Irril's daughter accidentally created a sauce so spicy it violated 3 chemical weapon treaties. The week before, Toke and 2 Zentari cubs made pasta from scratch and somehow got flour on the ceiling 4 rooms away. This is insanity. This is humanity. Meera sat beside him, her posture relaxed but her gaze intense. We don't keep our young safe by shielding them from every danger. We keep them safe by teaching them to face danger and overcome it. Tok got a tiny burn today. Yes, but he learned that burns heal, fires can be controlled, and failure is just the first step toward success. Through the wall, Velrith could hear his son's voice, high and excited, describing his culinary adventure to an audience of enraptured cubs. Not the monotone recitation of facts that passed for communication among his people, but genuine, unbridled enthusiasm. The medical report, Velrith said carefully, mentioned that Tok has been attending these sessions for 6 weeks. He's my best student, Meera admitted. Fearless, creative, willing to try anything. Last week he invented a fusion dish combining your people's protein synthesis with human fermentation techniques. It was disgusting, but the innovation was brilliant. And you let him fail. I let him learn. Meera's hand moved toward his arm, then stopped, respecting his species' touch aversion protocols. Commander, I know your instinct is to protect Tok from every possible harm, but humans learned long ago that the greatest harm we can do to our young is to raise them incapable of facing a dangerous universe. Velrith looked at the bread in his hands. Imperfect, inefficient, made by small clawed hands that had known burns and failures and triumph. He thought of his own childhood, sterile and safe and utterly unprepared for the chaos of war. He thought of the 7 million cubs who'd starved because no one had taught them how to survive outside the system. This kitchen disasters tradition, he said slowly, it happens every Tuesday? Every Tuesday, Meera confirmed. Next week we're attempting something called pizza. Fair warning, it involves throwing dough in the air, and I've been told Tok has been practicing his technique. My ceiling may not survive. For the first time in years, Commander Velrith felt his facial plates shift into what his species called a threat display, but what humans might recognize as a smile. Then I suppose, he said, I should learn this tradition as well. Someone needs to supervise my son's chaos. Meera's grin was fierce and warm. Welcome to Kitchen Disasters Night, Commander. First rule, nobody leaves until something's been set on fire, and everybody leaves knowing how to put it out. 3 months later, the Galactic Council's Efficiency Committee arrived to investigate reports of systematic endangerment of youth in the human quarters. They found 63 cubs from 42 species, covered in flour and happiness, learning to make what Meera called dumplings, while human supervisors circulated with fire extinguishers and first aid kits and unconditional encouragement. They found Commander Velrith, decorated war hero and efficiency expert, wearing something called an apron and teaching a group of Raxian cubs how to properly season a broth. They found Tok, small and scarred and absolutely radiant, leading a mixed-species team in the creation of what he called fusion cookies, a culinary abomination that somehow tasted like hope. The committee's report was brief. Human child-rearing practices deemed hazardous but effective. Recommend galaxy-wide implementation. Request recipe for cookies. And every Tuesday thereafter, kitchen disasters became not just family custom, but galactic tradition. Proof that sometimes the best way to prepare children for a dangerous universe is to hand them a spatula and teach them that mistakes, like fires, can always be contained, controlled, and transformed into something nourishing.